So I'm gonna be off for the rest. Gonna be coming back next week. And before jumping right back immediately into the scheduled World Tour and FF16, which we're going to do, going to check out Baldur's Gate. Would you happen to know a thing or two about Baldur's Gate?
I might have another thing or two. Good thing you're going to be taking that week off, because you'll definitely need it to figure out what the fuck you actually want to play as in that game.
Probably a monk. That sounds cool.
It is cool. This is so.
It's a
this
quick
is
look,
the
by
most
the way,
stacked,
just in case anyone doesn't know and didn't hear before.
Yeah, this is the most stacked game of the year, like year in many years. But it's this one though. Like after playing through Remake and 16 and going through a bunch of Tears of the Kingdom and all, it's this one. The best thing that I can say about it is that this is what I thought an RPG was like before I played one as a child. It's one of those things where people who are totally unfamiliar with the genre will go into it and go, yeah, of course that's how it works. And then people who are very familiar with the genre go, no, you don't understand. Nothing's ever actually done it properly ever.
Everything is always way more linear than you think. But when you're outside, like when I was explaining RPGs to Punch Mom and she was playing them for the first time, she was like, oh, so you can make every decision and those change the world, right? And
no.
And it's like, no, you're actually very, very much on a path and you can affect between path 1, 2, and 3, but you're going in the same direction. Yeah. How you think games work beforehand is that sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
It also does something. It also does something really smart. I'm gonna kind of ping pong around on this because there's a lot to talk about. It does something really smart. So one of the things that Zelda does really well in Tears of the Kingdom and to a lesser degree Breath of the Wild is there's an internal physics engine in that game, and then things happen the way you think they're supposed to happen. Right? So, burning something will make hot air, and then you use that or you can connect things with metal, and then that'll allow electricity put in, whatever. And that is how you would expect those things to occur using your own existing knowledge of the way the real world works. For Baldur's Gate 3, you're dealing with Dungeons and Dragons, specifically the Forgotten Realms setting, which is lots of magic, lots of weirdo monsters, lots of zany shit, right? And so you can't just go on common sense for that kind of thing. And so what they do is that every single permutation of every action in the game is extremely clearly explained as to what it actually does and how it actually works. And then within its own context, barring any minor bugs you encounter, it will work the way that you expect it to work. So, for example, you have a generalized set of actions. Hide, dash, dip your weapon into a flaming or volatile surface, use an improvised weapon, throw, etc. These things work how you would expect. So when you pick up a barbarian and you unlock the ability to use improvised weapon as a bonus action, and you have a really high strength, and you go, okay, improvised weapon, click on it. This says pick up an item or object in your vicinity and use it to hit something with. Then you pick up a child, because a child is an object in the game with mass. And then you use the child to hit the next child. Okay? There's a shove command. Is the boss standing kind of close to an edge? Boop. Bye.
Which is a very tabletop Dungeons and Dragons things to do, which is find a hilarious solution to a problem.
So the silence spell, right? There's a spell that creates a little circle of silence in which there is no sound, right? And you go, okay, great. This is to stop spellcasters from doing spells, right? No, it creates a zone of silence where it is. You want to put it on a wall that you're planning to blow up with explosives? Silent. You cast it on people that have like alarms set up so that they can call reinforcements into the room? Silent. Okay? You early on get speak to dead, speak to corpses, right? You can ask a corpse 3 or 4 questions, right? So you find a corpse out in the wild and you go, hey, you're a dead body, talk to me. And it comes as all green and glowing and shit. And it goes, hey. And you go, who are you? And so it's supposed to be 5 questions, but you don't always get all 5. Who are you? You have any valuables? Where were you going? You know, just typical. Sometimes there are narrative, associated, right? But if you kill someone and then try and talk to their corpse, they won't talk to you because the corpse, the spirit, recognizes that
you killed them.
You're the killer. So what you do is you get a spell cast of disguise self, and you race change into a different person, and then they'll talk to you.
Damn, that's pretty
sick. Because they don't recognize you as the person that killed them.
It has that much complexity contemplated into the system. That's really cool.
Matt Mercer was showing off that he was carrying around 45 barrels and crates in his inventory, and used it to just stack up a giant death tower and then leap over a castle wall that he wasn't supposed to be able to. Like,
yeah.
All the rules are there on the page.
Mm-hmm.
Like you there's no confusion over the interactions.
And that sounds way more like the type of shit again you'd say in a paper and pen kind of context instead of like video game systeming to solve the problem, right? You'd come up with something based on the environment and go, what's around? And the DM would be like, oh, there's some crates over there, like, nice. Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah. It's
role-playing actually for the
stuff like, hey, there's this massive, early on in the game, there's this massive trap that has like grease on the floor, barrels. It's got a fucking fire shooting everywhere. And you can try and run past it. You can try and disarm the trap, or you can use Mage Hand to just hit the button about 100 feet away that turns it off without risking anyone's lives. If you look at a room full of skeletons and you wonder, hey, are these skeletons going to attack me when I open up the vault or whatever? Walk up to the skeletons and loot them of their armor and their weapons. And then when they get up, they will have no armor and weapons. Because you took them.
That's really awesome.
Just in terms of like
think outside
mechanical
of game,
interaction.
Think outside of linear game logic and use the system for what it allows you to do. Yeah. Almost like a point and click, right? Like a point and click is designed in a way where someone had to sit there and think of what the game should say when you do tries to use the open or push prompt on the object that you wouldn't need to push,
Yeah. So I did something. I had a moment of I'm rarely like this, but I had like an inspired moment in which, Woolie, you have talked up, and I know you love this bit, in KOTOR 2, when you're on Dantooine and the mercenaries are getting ready to raid the farmstead. You can do a wide variety of situations, such as tell the mercenaries you're going to work with them and trick them into knowing that you're on their side, and then mine the whole area, or then play both sides and then reverse it at the last second. There's a lot of that going on. So I went to the big bad fortress and just told the evil character where the good guys were hiding. I just told them. Here they are. I then stole every explosive I could get my hands on in the entire game, and then went to where I thought they would show up and placed them, and then activated the sequence, at which point the entire fucking enemy force just crowded around like 10 bombs. And then I used one of my character's cantrip of Firebolt to kill like 40 enemies in a single strike.
Damn.
Instead of fighting them in the fortress.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just the amount of conceivable narrative interactions is also astonishing. I will describe one encounter in somewhat detail. It's fairly early, but in which you are breaking into somewhere you're not supposed to be. You're probably schmoozing your way in, right? So that people talk to you and they're not aggro. And you discover someone trying to raise a mind flayer from the dead to talk to it, right?
That's no good.
You then realize that you killed that mind flayer in the game's tutorial, and what they are going to ask it is who killed you, because they want whoever killed it to steal something from them. So the game starts to present to you, you have to stop them from asking this mind flayer corpse who killed you, because then they will all turn on you and you're literally surrounded by like 100 enemies. Okay, here's your options. Try and talk your way out of it and make up an excuse to leave. Right? Failed. I failed that deception check. Great. Okay, now I'm stuck here. All right, he cast the spell. What are my options? Okay, well, one of my options is to use my mind flayer bullshit on him and start asking questions with his voice through his body to the corpse so that I ask the wrong questions. I then ask the two wrong question and he goes, "What the fuck? I would never ask that," and almost instantly snaps out of it. And then get through the entire thing by just managing to not ask who killed you, and then the number of questions runs out and he gets fucking super pissed. And then everything's fine, and I've bypassed that encounter. And I bet you for a fucking... I am with a certainty is that if I had disguised self on when that mind flayer was asked, they would not have recognized my character anyway. Because I was looking different from my fucking character. Like, okay. It is just so... Like, I even did things in the story in goofy orders.
Yeah.
And then the game accounted for it.
So I get, like, because, like, again, I have no idea how the flow of things go. So what you're describing, like, it sounds like in the middle of conversations, you can still do game actions.
Yes, anything that could be potentially relevant whatsoever will show up inside as a dialogue choice. So so here's a really say you want to talk to an animal, right? And there's an animal over there. Put talk to animals on yourself, and then an animal just going honk honk, I'm a fucking geese or whatever, will suddenly become a fully realized character with their own dialogue. And you can ask them to do something or not, or tell you where the fuck anything is.
But once the conversation has started, are you in a, like, conversation tree that, like...
Yeah, you're in a conversation tree. And then your actions will be limited to what would be associated with that.
Okay.
So using your mind control shit, or using, appropriate skills, or deciding to take rolls, and then inside the roll, like it shows roll the dice, at the bottom it will be like, do you want to add anything you have on your person to this roll? So if you have potions of strength and you're doing a strength check, the potion will be at the bottom of the screen, and you can go, I would like to drink it right before I do my check.
Okay. Because, yeah, for example, when you describe, like, using the silence thing, if it's a moment inside of a conversation where I'm like, oh, I want that on right now, actually, but you're locked in. No,
you would be limited.
You should have used it beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It is just astonishing. Like, I went to an enemy hideout in which a bunch of goblins were having a party. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And discovered that there are like 150 named goblins that all have multiple. Like, you know, when you talk to a character in an RPG and they say the one thing. Every single one of these goddamn goblins has at least two. And there's like hundreds of them in this fucking just fucking ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to somebody else. They're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't talk to anybody. I snuck in the back and then hung out on the rafters and just fireballed everyone from the roof. Never talked to a single person."
That's really exciting that like this is designed as as well, again, not just an RPG, but like you're describing just D&D campaign antics, like that's because I assume, though, maybe incorrectly, that if you were uncreative and just playing it like I swung my sword to solve the problem and then I spoke
you'd
to
fight a lot.
And you can just video game your way through it.
You could just human fighter your way through and just solve every problem with your sword.
Okay.
Or you could try like a unique situation on occasion.
Right.
So I was told I found a captured owlbear being like beat up and like teased by assholes. And they were like, "Well, why don't you chase the chicken? We'll play chicken chasing." And there's a whole fucking obstacle course to chase the chicken. And what the game wants you to do is do that thing where you run behind an NPC and then it tries to go away from you and like kind of push it through the thing and you're timed. And I said no. And so I drank a potion of talking to animals and then I was like, "Hey, run through those posts over there." And then they did. And then they beat the time.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like the personality of your character or how you play them is much more meaningful than just like what your gear and equipment are and how you swing your sword.
Oh,
right?
yeah. There's a huge variation in race and class options available to you in most conversations. And that is on top of the fact that I am playing as the Dark Urge custom character, which is the horrific serial murderer that's probably trying to do good or whatever, which has altered nearly every major conversation in the entire game. I was talking to a friend of mine. There is a sequence in which a small child is being threatened by a snake, a evil venomous snake that will kill it if the kid moves. I did not realize that this dialogue option was unique to the Dark Urge character, but the narrator starts telling you about how like hot and bothered you'd be if the kid died. And the first dialogue option that you have available is for you to flick your eyes from the kid to the exit to try and get the kid to run for it so that the snake bites them.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Which they would. And they would die. They talked about how the Dark Urge is like really violent and extremely dark and is not for beginners. And the Dark Urge is extremely violent and dark and not for beginners. Like there is like a Mortal Kombat level of gore associated with just this archetype.
In your fantasies and moments that happen like that.
No, in the reality.
Okay. But doesn't that mean that if you don't pick it, you have to pick a pre-canned character?
No. You make your own guy.
Or a pre-canned. Wasn't Dark Urge the answer to...
The default is a completely custom character, which you would pick your race, your class, your sub-race, and then your background, which would be something like criminal or acolyte or charlatan or soldier or noble.
What was the part that was how Dark Urge is a new thing for like your original background versus there's a preset list of backgrounds
the party members that you get early in the game, you can choose to play them as they are. So if you want the elf guy on the box, Asterion, if you want to, you can just play as him.
Right.
And then he will have his own story beats that are unique to everyone else's. Right. That have to do with more like a personal quest. Dark Urge is another pre-canned character The difference is that you can customize their class and how they look and stuff like that.
And so I guess because when we were talking about this the first time, I think from the way it used to be in older games, I guess it would be that you could still do that with all these other characters, but the main custom character did not have their own associated backstory.
Yeah, so in this, your custom guy will have their own backstory that is partially in your own head, but it is going to be on part of your background, which is like, are you a criminal or a career soldier or what have you? And then the game will play into that by offering you rewards and story beats for that background. So, for example, if you pick Urchin, which is like beggar, as your background, when a bunch of shit-headed kids try and steal from you, you can have advantages to not being pickpocketed and instead talk to them in like thieves' cant and try and get in on their racket, which is available only to people with that background.
Okay, so it used to be that then your OC was just like a passive observer in these other main characters' stories.
In what
up to
game?
the end of in previous Baldur's Gates?
Okay, well, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, those games came out in 98 and 2000.
Okay.
Because your character, like, those games are old. They worked like old games. You had what you would expect of a typical series of choices, but your character in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 was like a set character with a set backstory.
Okay, then I think I misunderstood the first conversation about, like, I guess Dark Urge existing versus before it existed and what that fully meant.
No, yeah, Dark Urge is a character with its own story and its own background and its own like quests, but you can customize the way it looks, and you can customize if it's a lady or a man, or you can customize this or that. Whereas, like, if you want to play as Karlach, she's always going to be a tiefling. She's always going to have the same voice actor. She's always going to be a lady. She's always going to be red.
God, I'm stupid. So, just my last question here. That character you described is someone your custom character is going to meet, and then you switch to control them, and then you do their story.
No.
Okay.
So, everyone you don't play as, you will eventually encounter in the game.
Okay.
So on the character select, at the top it's custom. And then underneath it lists origin characters that have like defined storylines.
Okay.
Right? And then there's Astarion, Karlach, Will, Shadowheart, etc. And then the last one on that list is Dark Urge.
Okay.
If you pick Dark Urge, they come with their own predefined story.
Right.
But you can choose how the character looks, and you can change their class, and you can change this.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
I didn't understand whether it was like you pick this character, this NPC, not you pick one of these from the outset versus you meet them later and they join you and then you're doing the story.
The difference with Dark Urge is that Dark Urge will not be in your party.
Right.
Probably because they're a psychotic serial murderer.
Okay.
They are probably in the last act of the game. There was a preview storyline called Blood in Baldur's Gate that I think they're in the city doing evil shit. But yeah, no, I'm playing as Dark Urge, and it is a blast. You run into people, and the narration is like, why don't you pull their arms off? And then sometimes you pull their arms off, and then you feel better.
Yeah, this would explain why the character creator, like, when I was talking about it, how I was like, oh, it feels like it, like, no body types and things like that. Like, all the things that you would associate with, making your, I mean, I guess MMO or even other kind of action-oriented game character design would give you, like, which one of these action-oriented spells and stats do you kind of want to roll with? And here, there's, like, I noticed from just looking at them that there's some action-oriented things, but there's a whole lot of, like, completely non-action oriented.
What you would expect would be superfluous details.
Exactly. Conversational things and observational things and passive things and Disco Elysium style stats and things like that. Yeah, so that being a part of it means like, okay, it's because the complex way in which you have all these interactions layered on top of each other has to have a limit somehow. So here it's focused more on those things instead.
I would personally recommend that for everybody who is starting the game off or not super familiar with this genre or not streaming it, to not play the Dark Urge first, as there are super violent murders that you cannot stop your character from doing.
You just have to mitigate when you give in, was I believe.
There are some that are just going to happen. And there are some that appear to be like, you can do this or you can do that, which would not be an issue for so I have a sneaking suspicion that playing Dark Urge is going to give me situations like kill everybody in this whole town or else.
Okay, now the thing is as you're saying I recommend this is for people who've played or experienced, you're also describing the coolest part about this narrative and how different it is from other game narratives, and it sounds incredibly interesting. So
yeah, absolutely.
What you need to do are the other backstories equally as compelling in different ways? Because that's because shit sounds rad, and you're like, don't do it.
All of the origin characters are trading player choice for authored content, right? So dealing with your evil goblin butler who tells you that he loves murder and you should keep doing murder is obviously only for Dark Urge, right? However, dealing with that character necessarily precludes talking to the character that you had to murder to talk to him. Because the character that you horribly, viciously murder outside of player control is a character you can hang out with and talk to for much of the game.
Right, okay. So it adds this, it's a chaotic element.
You're trading things.
Right.
Essentially. Right? You are trading, I would like less ability to choose. And instead you're saying I would like slightly more authored content. However, the baseline character with custom is basically going to have the widest player choice of any situation. Okay.
Now, the other thing, too, is that the lens of playing this game, for the entirety of its super long duration and on your own and such, and is a very different thing versus what we do as content creators. But I know that one thing I said early on from the jump is like not getting too caught up in the like conclusions of the actions that you like decide or roll with. However the game rolls the dice, you roll with the punches. That's the only way to go through something like this, especially if I'm just kind of like trying it out and seeing what it's like. So I guess all that is to say that like the things that you would be worried about as a first timer in a general normal context, me personally, I'm not, because I'm rolling with whatever happens,
that's how I feel. Like if
I'm open to whatever, because like the whole thing is to woolly overthink about how to do the perfect. I can't, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just gonna let the game take me where it's gonna,
Like if I'm in a situation in which the narrative takes me to a place where I have to kill every single person I know in that game, I'm streaming it, so fuck it, let's go. Though I cannot possibly say enough that for anybody who doesn't like being railroaded into choices and missing out on things, you should really, really play a fully custom character right away and not do this, because the game will take control away from you and do things for you that you may not want to do, which is kind of the storyline of the whole character, which is you may or may not want to actually do anything, but then oopsie murder. Like, does that make sense?
So fully custom, it completely lets go of the rails, and it's
So you would have a wider variety of things to do.
Okay, so that sounds, I guess, the most D&D-ish,
Yes.
Does it? I guess my question is, like, when you kind of do it that way, are you kind of yes-anding in the sense that if the game asks you something and you answer it, is it assuming that that's Are you answering in a way that is like inventing what you are?
What? What does that mean?
I mean, if you have a custom character that's not railroading you into any of these decisions that you're describing,
Right.
What replaces that narrative? Okay.
I don't. What?
I'm try. I don't.
What?
I think I just need to. Never mind. I just need to play it and see what it is because we're talking
Like
about
you
things
would,
I
you
literally
would
never
have
seen.
chosen. You would have chosen your race. You would have chosen your class. You would have chosen your background.
Yeah,
So
the
you
role
would
playing
be
aspect.
You would be an elf, sorcerer, charlatan. And so this means that when you go into certain dialogues, it would activate the charlatan tag or the elf tag or the sorcerer tag and then accommodate you thus. So your background would be, oh, I'm a charlatan. So you would get dialogue options that deal with tricking people or being an asshole in your former career.
Let me phrase this another way. I think I have it, but again, I'm an idiot, so fuck me. Every interaction you can have in this game, is it that there is a generic version and then a special backstory associated version that might be applicable if you are in that mode? So you pick a character that's a part of, like you said, a band of thieves or so, and so you associate with that group in a unique way because you have a past with them. Versus if you're not and you're just doing a generic interaction, then it becomes the default across the board.
Yes and no. Okay, so there's a
If that makes sense.
There's a point in which a Satan tries to offer you a deal, right? Literal devil horn man, fucking whatever, right? If you are playing a completely custom character, you will have the slate of options to talk to him, to maybe accept his deal, ask him questions whatsoever, right? If you are Dark Urge, you have some of your options have been swapped out for, dude, can you maybe cure me of this horrible murder freak shit? If you are playing as Will, who is a warlock, you would have dialogue associated with the fact that you are this player character that is as a warlock associated with that. So like the custom character is a blank slate.
Therefore, every interaction becomes the first version of what you described, whereas specific characters would get the second or
modified
third for the specific groups of people that they have that with. Right. That's okay. That's
and so then that's where your background or your race, your class comes in, where the conversation will activate and go, oh, this person is a acolyte.
Okay.
Right. And so then you will load into the acolyte version of the conversation.
Right. Now, are there characters who literally will exist or not exist at all depending on what you've chosen? Like, for example...
Yes.
Okay.
There's at least one.
Okay.
The evil butler for the Dark Urge is only talks to Dark Urge.
Okay. Great. Okay. Got it. So that
honestly, more than the background is your race and your class show up much more often. Like one of the first interactions you can have is pulling a wizard out of a portal he got stuck in. And if you're a sorcerer, you can make fun of wizards because they're nerds and they can't just do it by themselves.
Okay, got it. What I was poorly asking before was because I didn't understand that there's two layers to every character. There's the I don't know you version and the I do know you version, right? And then and essentially like no, and so that clarifies the rest of it. It's like, okay, you can just play the no one knows you version, and that's your custom thing. Yeah,
I have to say it's actually like very frustrating talking to people because they made the Dark Urge character that has, you know, a custom race and a custom look and all that, because most people go, oh, well, that's the version that you can customize that's more content. It's like, no, it's not more content. It's different content. It in fact will take away little pieces of the game because it is authored. Right. Similarly, if you play as Asterion or you play as Karlach, like you play as Karlach, yeah, you'll get more details about her devil bullshit and the engine inner chest and all that stuff, but that removes some of the base options from the game that you wouldn't be able to deal with because you have that backstory. So like when you pick Dark Urge, you get a custom background that is Haunted One, right? And it's like listed in your character sheet. Okay. When you pick Asterion, he has the Charlatan background. When you play as Shadowheart, you get the Acolyte background. Something like that. I would say the vast majority of this game's content can't be seen on Trip 1. Like, there are just too many permutations of events and events done in specific orders and whatnot.
Once you do actually start a fight, what, I guess, does the combat look like? Or
oh, have you not seen it? Okay,
no,
so
I know nothing.
Everybody rolls initiative, and then the turn order pops up at the top of the screen. And then you have you'll grab a character's turn, and then you will be able to, like, you move either the mouse cursor or the oh fuck it, it's XCOM. It's just XCOM.
XCOM. Okay.
It's just XCOM with free movement instead of a grid.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's way faster. It's just XCOM.
I remember that. Yep. Okay.
It's absolutely fucking stellar.
Cool.
It is absolutely surprising and amazing. And I think one of the people in my chat said it yesterday, was like, it is the first game in a while that I'm like kind of like excited the whole time. Like over and over and over and over. Every single thing I encounter, I'm like, ooh! Like just the massive wide variety of just interesting situations that you are constantly dealing with.
Yeah, something I did see someone say somewhere was that, like, it really rewards you for meandering in random directions and just and like inquiring and seeing what's going on instead of trying to hit your checkpoints and push the train forward. And that sounds fucking awesome for the way I love to play games.
Okay. I have a perfect interaction to explain to you how the background thing works. Right? I encountered a magic mirror that I did not know how to get through because it was blocking my way in. Right? It was like one of those magic mirrors that talks to you. Mm-hmm. Because I'm playing a half orc, I had the option to just threaten it Unga style and be like, if you do not let me in, I will smash you to bits. This is an intimidation check, explicit to orcs only. So only if I'm running a half orc with high charisma and intimidation proficiency is this a good idea, right? I do it. The mirror goes, yeah, okay, fine, and lets me through. And that's not a Dark Urge option. That's
that's a race based.
That's a race option, right?
Yeah.
When I did that, Asterion got an inspiration point for defeating the mirror, and I realized that if Asterion had been the one to try and deal with the mirror, it would have been a completely different interaction because he's a fucking vampire, and it can't see him.
Okay. And you can control them, and you can lead that, and so you can make that happen.
Yeah.
Right. So who does what also is a huge difference as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can swap over to a different party member. Like, you swap to whoever picks locks. Mm-hmm. And if you need to look at some magic bullshit, you can switch to the wizard and whoever has high intelligence.
And then I guess besides those two, there's just, hey, I'm some rando looking at this mirror, and that's a series of.
I just want to get in.
Normal options right there. Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
You can also talk to people and then switch to a different party member who would not be locked into the conversation, and then do things in that area while the NPC is locked in the conversation. So one of the easier tricks is that if you can't get an NPC to look away from something, go talk to them, and then they will lock in, and then you can pickpocket them when they're looking in the weird direction.
Okay. Yeah, no, a million
Also,
questions.
I would like to clarify. Somebody in the chat made a great point. It's not a random person. It's the main character. They just have your authored backstory
The
instead of the
OC,
game.
the OC that you've put into this world. Yes, yes, not
Mm-hmm.
a random, right? Yeah, a million other questions and shit I have are just like answered simply by fucking like playing the thing. So, I'll just
It
wait.
is
I'll wait for that.
it is the first game that I have streamed in a long time that I am like sitting here going like, I should just start a second save that's just mine, and just so I'm playing it all the time. And then I'm looking over at my wife like, hey, when the baby's asleep, we should start a co-op campaign. And then I played FF14 with my buds on Sunday, and then as soon as we were done, 4 of them jumped into their own co-op campaign, and I was watching that for 45 minutes as they got their ass rocked by an owlbear.
And I guess the last thing I was wondering is like doing this and then going back to the early access version that you played a while ago.
Yeah.
Did you see any of that content?
So when I played the early access version, I played it the day it came out, and like the next day and the next day, and I played for about 10 hours total, and then I hit like level 3 or 4 or something, and I went, wow, this thing is huge. And then I checked and saw that the early access version was like the entirety of the first act of the game, and went, wow. And then I'm like, I'm going to stop here because I want to play this game when it is out. And so I did see some of that. Some of it's significantly different. Like the whole tutorial got completely redone. But it is basically just really improved and a lot more polished. It's still not perfect. I mean, they put out the second hotfix while we were talking, which fixed like a wide variety of bugs, including penis C and penis D clipping through your pants if you're a GIF.
So there's a streamer mode option then on the settings.
Yes, there is.
Wonderful.
You turn off. You can turn off nudity, and you can turn off explicit sexual content.
Fantastic.
And the game's got a memory leak, so if you run it for more than 6 hours, you should restart the game. And like, there's a bug where you can't multi-class rogue after 2 range or low. You know, it's a video game that's coming out in the year of our Lord 2023, but they've already made extraordinary progress on tuning it up. Like there's a couple minor bugs that I've encountered and like written up and sent to Larian on the controller support. But that's to be expected because the real controller support doesn't need to be there until 4 weeks from now when the console version comes out.
Yeah, I gotta see how the controller works as well.
So here's the fun thing about the controller support. It does some things much worse than mouse and keyboard, and it does some things much, much better than mouse and keyboard. It is weirdly easier to manage your inventory on a controller. That's something I didn't expect. And it's a lot better to move your character with a controller. It is more annoying to pick your skills on a controller.
Okay.
Like it's really a coin flip depending on your preference.
Well, picking things like time doesn't really matter, right? It's all turns, so
Oh yeah. In fact, not only is it all turns, when you're playing the game, it's taking place in real time, so people are walking. But if you have to do something really fine-tuned and specific, you can go into you can hit a button and turn it into turn-based mode, like just out and about. So if you want to do some complicated interaction, like I don't know, pick a lock when no guards are looking, you can turn it into turn-based mode where turns take 6 seconds and make sure that you're not being rushed.
when you're Outside of combat, you mean?
Yeah. So let's say you're not in combat and you want to throw down a barrel in front of a merchant, have your character run away, and have a third character shoot it with fire to blow them up, right? That is a complicated series of actions to do in real time. So what you do is you turn it to turn-based mode, and then you put the barrel down, then you have that character move their max distance, then you move to your next character and do it, and it all happens functionally instantaneously.
And like, so you set up your moves in like stopped time, and then
Yeah, basically, yeah.
and then when it's and then okay, so yeah, more like
that
more
in
like a time
particular
stop
is way
instead of switching over to the opponent's turn
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And like usually you can ambush anybody in that thing because they're not even going to have turns until you
like the
do
word
something.
turn implies now it's you, but it's not. It's a stop time, resume time, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha. All right, cool.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And most of your questions would be like experientially explained by doing rather than explaining, because like there's only so far I can get away with like the implicit understanding from having played.
Yes.
Because like you dodged like not just like games of this genre. Like I don't think you played like Skyrim or
No, a whole lot of things, and those the gaps in my knowledge it tend to infuriate a lot of people as I try to figure out and get my bearings here, and I can only do what I ask the questions to the best of my ability. But regardless, I'm like, okay, anything else I want to know, I'll just play it and we'll find it out. There's no need to.
I would say that the best thing about this is that it requires less abstraction for people unfamiliar with the genre. Right? So
That's cool.
like CRPGs have had this problem for a long time where you're like, ooh, like I'll use the silence spell. I have a silence spell. What weird zany situations can I get up to this? And the answer is you can use it in combat to turn off casters. Right? Because the game is still like fairly rigidly defined.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the Breath of the Wild of the CRPG, where it's like, does it seem like it should work? It's probably going to work the way you think it is.
Sick. I expect to think of some creative solutions which will not work, but a variation of that idea kind of will work, and then we'll go with that instead. That's what I'm kind of expecting. Yeah. And
I saw somebody do something that I had never anticipated, which was you can pick up the corpses of enemies and put them in your backpack. And so they were carrying around a bunch of dead imps in their barbarian's backpack so that the necromancer would have corpses on hand to cast their necromancy spells.
That's fantastic. Hell yeah. I guess the only other thing is like, I'm like, how much of that is you pulled that idea out of the blue versus the HUD suggested it to you, you know?
Well, the main thing is that like when the spell descriptions are where you're going to get most of your zany effects, and they're very clear, right? They will say something like removes fall damage. Featherfall, the very classic spell, removes fall damage. So if there's no fall damage and you see what appears to be a infinite pit, maybe it's not an infinite pit and you won't get hurt jumping down with Featherfall.
Mm-hmm.
So go see what's down there.
And like the idea of putting a corpse in your backpack, I guess implies that like a corpse on the ground to begin with has a button that you can click that says put it in your item space.
Yes.
Which why
you hit
why would that ever be a thing?
Square or X, and it gives you the list. And
yeah, that's
open, examine, pick up, etc. Yeah.
That's what because I'm like, in any video game, that's just a corpse on the ground. Like, why would there even be anything remotely resembling? Put that in your So yeah. Okay. Cool.
I don't know if you can blow people up by putting like grenades in their inventory. Someone in the chat could probably let me know, because that's a thing that you can do in some games. where you can put poison or like bombs in people's inventories, and the game goes, okay, did you pickpocket a bomb into this person's inventory? No reverse pickpocketing? Bummer.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else of note?
Nope.
What's the schedule?
That's the game. That's the one. I'll be playing this until January of next year. I do have one piece of advice for people, though. Actually, no, I do have more to talk about. One piece of advice. So paladins have an oath system in this game, in which your class, part of your class selection, is...
There's 2 types I saw.
There's 3. There's devotion, which is goody two shoes paladins. Ancients, which is nature, hippy dippy paladins, and then there's vengeance paladins, who are about the greater good, right? And the greater good under this context means that if a bad guy is getting away, you are well within the realm of your oath to jam the wheels of their wagon with a child's body, because it'll help you serve out justice, right?
Gotcha.
If you break your oath, you lose your powers and then transition into the Oathbreaker class, which is a separate version of Paladin. I wanted to play Oathbreaker, but I wanted to play Vengeance first. If you want to play Oathbreaker, don't pick the Vengeance Paladin. I tried for multiple days to break my oath and found it extremely difficult. Extremely difficult to break, like, very tough. Vengeance Paladins get away with all sorts of shit. So if you want that Oathbreaker, you want to pick one of the goody two shoes ones, and then just stab one person.
Knowing that so much of this game is gonna be like the how you do things, and not just like, again, which spice of combat flavor you want to sprinkle. Something like when I talk about like wanting to do like hand to hand, and like monk is like good for that and stuff. It kind of makes me like, I guess I'll take a look at again to see what the launch version of these things are going to be like. But if there's, more interesting things to do that are not combat related coming from other classes and things, it makes those more appealing in some cases, because if you want to, like, I punching things is really cool, but also if you're not going to solve things that way most of the time, or if you're going to try to solve things in more interesting ways and have more fun with that system, why not lean into that?
Yeah, so like I'll give you an example with Barbarian. It's the easiest one. I think I described it to you last week, where there's a puzzle in which you have to figure out the runes to open a door, and everyone has to do the puzzle. But the Barbarian, because they're maximum Unga, just gets the choice to go, what if I just tried to pull the door right the fuck off?
Right.
All classes get shit like that is appropriate to the class fantasy.
Okay.
Right? I also, like, there's so many fucking goofy interactions in this game. Say you have a potion of haste, right? You drink a potion of haste, potion of speed. All right, good. You now have haste for 10 turns, which is incredible, by the way. Amazing, right? You're like, wow, that's really great. I wonder if there's anything else I can do. Well, if you drop the potion of haste on the ground and group your party member around it and attack it with a weapon, you'll smash the bottle and the potion will splash on everyone next to it, and they will all get haste.
That's
what we're talking about.
Okay. Jesus Christ. There's like 15 things there that are not what video games do. Wow.
So you can use the throw command like a Final Fantasy ninja to throw like bullshit you don't want to hurt enemies. You can, if your strength is high, you can throw with a high degree of accuracy. If your athletics is high, you can throw potions at people. So if you're like, oh man, Gale is fucked up. He's at like 1 HP. I'm playing a very physically strong athletic character, so I just whip potions at his head. And here's the kicker. The fucking potion does a hit of damage first before the
then it
heal
heals.
kicks in.
Right.
Because you're smashing the glass into their face.
Okay. That's an interesting detail of the world that you have to, I guess, know or discover, that people don't have to drink things for them to be affected by them. They just need to touch them. That potions, I assume, need to be drunk, you know?
I saw a video of somebody who couldn't figure out how to get on top of a building, and they didn't have teleport. So what they did is they had the druid turn into a cat, and then the barbarian picked them up and whipped them over the top of the building.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hell yeah. That's a D&D right there. Mm-hmm.
Like
fastball special.
It's just tons and tons of cool little interactions that just do things. It's a cool game.
Nice.
You should play it.
I'm going to.
It's like the 6th most played game on Steam ever. Why am I doing that?
What happened? All right.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We're gonna plug that shit in and we do it. And obviously, I mean, I've said it like multiple times at this point, but yeah, it supports co-op. We're gonna fucking play co-op. Obviously,
it does support co-op.
I'll for sure. That's
also, if you do play co-op, I would recommend to everyone that you play fully custom characters, because a custom player character, a player character cannot talk to another human person. Like whoever the people are controlling cannot interact with dialogue
with each other.
Because there would be 1 billion variations of every interaction conceivable. So,
but we can still switch.
Yeah, you can still switch, but whoever you're playing as can't talk to whoever they're playing as, right? So play as customs so that both of you can talk to all of the party members.
Oh yeah, for sure, and it would also kill the fun of us getting to.
Yeah. The only thing you're really, really missing out on is the banter of you guys wandering around. So like when I have 3 people in my party, they're complaining about demons, or they're talking about goblins, or whatever.
Oh, but there aren't going to be the NPCs that are following around.
Oh, they'll still talk. They'll just have the 2-person version of the conversation instead of the 3-person.
Instead of the 3. Okay, cool. Yeah, sick.
Yeah, cool game.